everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Lab to Life. I'm your host, Farhan, and I'm here with our amazing producer, Grace. And we're so excited to kick off this podcast where we dive into the lives and careers with amazing professionals in research and healthcare.
Today, we are truly honored to have a very special guest for our debut episode. Today, we're thrilled to have Dr. Melanie Buba with us. She's a hospital pediatrician and researcher at the CHIO Research Institute, with research focused on some of the most crucial areas in healthcare today, such as virtual care, patient safety, and family-centered healthcare, especially during and after the COVID-19 pandemic.
She is also hugely responsible in helping shape pediatric hospital medicine in Canada, which is really exciting and huge. And we're excited to dive into her incredible work, hear her story, and get some advice for anyone who's interested in careers in research and medicine. So, without further ado, Dr. Buba, welcome to Lab to Life. And we're so thrilled to have you here with us for our very first episode.
Hi, Farhan and Grace. It's so lovely to meet you both, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you. So let's start off with something very light. Every job has its surprises. So what is the coolest part of your daily job that most people don't know about?
The coolest part. I mean, there's so many cool things that I love about my job. But probably the most fun is honestly, I spend a lot of time like playing with my patients. So like getting down on the floor with them and playing with them while I try to examine them and, really trying to interact with them as much as I can, given their age and developmental stage, and really trying to build rapport with patients, from toddlers to teenagers. I think I never expected that type of relationship building so quickly in my work, but it really is quite an amazing aspect and something that I really, really love about being a pediatrician is that, you do really become for a short period of time a part of a family and a patient's life.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And it's always like that's something that you wouldn't really imagine in like an adult type of healthcare. So it's really amazing that that makes your job really special. If you hadn't become a pediatrician or a researcher, what do you think you would be doing now?
So that's a great question, and I'm glad you gave me a bit of a heads up on that one because I actually phoned my mom last night and asked her what are some of the jobs that are careers that I wanted as a kid, and it ranged anywhere from flight attendant to dentist and orthodontist. I think at one point I wanted to be a police officer, but she said as I got older, medicine became, the way I would describe medicine as a child. So doctor, I think at one point she even said I did mention wanting to be a pediatrician. So the overarching theme was that I wanted to work with people. I wanted to be in a helping profession. And so here I am.
That's amazing. And as university students now, we're, I guess, always looking ahead and thinking about our future careers. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to students who are interested in pediatric medicine or healthcare research?
So I think just generally my advice would be do things you like because that is what you'll be good at. Bottom line, I think everyone is meant to follow their own path, and your career is something that you're going to spend the majority of your time doing. So everyone always says it, but I can't emphasize it enough that you have to love what you do. And medicine especially is so all consuming. It really does become a part of your identity and who you are. And so if you are thinking about medicine, and particularly when you get to the point of choosing what specialty you do, it really is important that you love it because you spend your life doing it. Even, outside of working hours, medicine is one of those fields where it's just constantly part of your life. So do try everything. I think I did electives in almost everything. Try everything, keep an open mind, and be very cognizant of how you feel in certain environments, whether it's a hospital or a clinic or a particular patient population, and find what matches your personality. In my case, coming from teaching, which is where I thought I was headed, to pediatrics, it's such a natural transition everything I do is teaching with kids, with families, from the way I communicate with them to the way I talk about discharge to the way I even take a history. Like a lot of it, there's so many similarities. And of course, obviously, one is working with kids and the other is working with kids. So for me, it was, a pretty, natural choice to go into pediatrics, and actually didn't even feel like a choice at all. It was just kind of one of those things that I always felt. And really, I think, when you're going through your various, university courses and then in med school and elective, it really is about being very reflective and setting aside time to think about how you feel in these situations with these people in these careers. So that would be, we don't carve out a lot of time for that sort of reflection time. But I think as one navigates through the journey of getting to one's career, and even in the career, it is really, really important.
Okay, that is such great advice. Honestly, everyone does have their own journey, and it is best if we do what we love, because you're right, we will ultimately be the best at what we like. So, looking back at your own university days, is there something that you wish that you'd known back then, or something that have has like helped you on your journey back then?
So what do I wish I would have known? Honestly, I think as I go through each phase of my education, so university, med school, residency, I often look back and think, oh, I should have had more fun,
That's
because
such a common one
honestly,
too.
pardon?
That's a very common one. I've heard a lot of doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, I mean, I love being at this stage of my career. Don't get me wrong, but there is a lot of responsibility that comes with being, an adult and, having a career and all the things that come along with that. And don't get me wrong, I did have actually quite a bit of fun in university and in med school and in residency. And I think that is actually what has led to a lot of my success, is just really enjoying not only the academic part, but the social part. And I went to NOSM, so it was a very small med school class, and we had a blast. We always were, doing social things, hanging out. And, medicine is hard, university is hard. It's really, really, I think, essential to have those moments of happiness and fun and create those relationships with people going through it with you. Nobody else really understands medicine the way that people who are in medicine understand. And so developing those relationships, both, in the academia, but also in the social side, I think, has really, really been a blessing and something I would definitely recommend to everyone as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Honestly, what you just said right now is so common against doctors. Like I've seen so many interviews and so many TikToks and all of this where doctors are constantly saying that they either like they really were happy about the fact that they enjoyed their journey, and some regretted it that they didn't enjoy it and it was just studying. So I'm very glad that you actually got to live out a fun life when it comes to the academic aspect and all. And speaking of your journey, you have done so much in virtual care, at least as much as I read. So, especially in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, how do you think virtual care will change the way kids and families experience healthcare in the future?
So I think virtual care has already changed the way kids and families access care in the future. I think, there are so many benefits to virtual care in terms of, access. And really we can do so many things remotely now. It's actually, I think just coming to the hospital is not easy. I mean, I'm not even talking about patients who are admitted, but coming to a clinic appointment can be really challenging, right? You have to get here, you have to pay for parking. Someone has to take either time off work or time off school to come. And so from like a very sort of simplistic view, it does afford the opportunity for ease of access to healthcare. That said, virtual care, like anything, is not all positive. There's, some challenges associated with it as well. First of all, not everyone has access to this technology. We have to remember to have a cell phone and internet at home still in Canada can be considered a privilege by, for many, that not everyone can have. Having privacy in order to do these sorts of things virtually from home can be a real challenge, especially in some homes and in some living situations. And of course, in my opinion, nothing beats an in-person meeting. It's really, nothing. And even now, in the hospital setting, we still do a lot of hybrid things, even just amongst us doctors with meetings and all that. But I just came from an in-person meeting and I just thought to myself, oh, nothing really beats this sort of in-person interaction. So I think the way I see virtual care now, I mean, first of all, the way we saw it during COVID, it was a necessity. There was, frankly, in many cases, no other way to deliver care other than virtually. Now, I think virtual care is positioned as a tool in one's toolbox. So it is a tool that we can use with the right patient in the right circumstance in order to provide care, but it is not appropriate to be used all the time anymore, given our world has changed so much, right? We're all kind of, very post-pandemic. It's a different world, but by and large, most of us are meeting and there isn't that fear around COVID anymore. So it is, I think, a very useful tool and a tool that will continue to exist, whether we like it or not. And the more we learn about it and the more we improve it, will only make it a better tool for us to use for our patients, with our patients.
Thank you. That is a very interesting perspective, and especially because I feel like kind of when you talk about that it can be a tool now, like as we've kind of come out of that, we're post-pandemic and everything, people are looking for more of that connection. And I can see how that would kind of like change the whole aspect of virtual care is great, but we're always going to need that one-on-one.
In-person connection.
Yeah.
Totally. We are by nature, human beings want to feel connected, right? I think there's, so much to be said about that feeling of connectedness. And sometimes it's just not possible to do that through a screen. So, yeah, so I still do a little bit of virtual care, but I would say by and large, I have opted to go back to in-person as much as possible.
Yeah. This kind of ties into our next question. And we've read that another big area of your research is family-centered care. And what's one thing you think hospitals could do to make patients and their families feel more involved?
Okay, yeah, you're right. So I'm very, very passionate about this. And so I have to be careful that I don't like spend the next 30 minutes talking about this. So honestly, this is going to sound like the most simple answer, but it is, in my experience, the truest one. The way we can involve patients and families is simply by asking them. It's so simple. And what I mean by that, using a very simple example, is, you approach a patient and a family about a treatment decision. Spend 2 minutes asking the patient and the family how they feel about the options presented to them, what they think about it. In some situations, you talking about benefits and risks. What are their perceptions on the benefits and risks? We shouldn't be recommending things based on my values and preferences. We really should be working with patients and families to figure out what their values and preferences are and incorporate that into their clinical decision making. And in my opinion, the easiest way to do that is to ask. And honestly, to spend 5 minutes getting to know our patients and our families as people. Who are they? What's their belief system? What influences their decisions? What are their thoughts about what's going on? It doesn't take long, honestly, it doesn't take long, and they're just keen to get engaged, but many of them are afraid and don't know how to enter that discussion, how to even start that discussion. So sometimes a simple question of, how are you feeling about this? What do you think? Is there anything you're afraid of? What do you think of all these things we've just talked about? What is actually feasible for you and your family at home? Do you think, giving your kid your 3-year-old an antibiotic 3 times a day is actually going to work? 4 times a day is possible? What are you worried about? I use antibiotics because it's the most obvious choice, but there's lots of information out there about antibiotic resistance. So many families, are reading some of these things in the news and about all things, CT scans, X-rays, radiation exposure. We can't talk to our patients and families like they don't already come to the table with beliefs and knowledge about some of the things we're wanting to do or wanting to talk about. So engaging them in that decision making by careful and thoughtful questioning, I think really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's really, I can see, because it seems like so straightforward, you should just ask, but I guess in like healthcare places, like it's just, it doesn't really come first. So I can see how that would really make a difference too. And you can see how, especially when there's all this access to technology and all this new information all at the same time, that, yeah, as you said, people are coming forward with all of this prior knowledge. And
Yeah.
that will influence, I guess, their approach to treatment and healthcare as well.
Because at the end of the day, Grace, if there is no opportunity to tease that out together, when, if I say, okay, take this antibiotic, and the family, there's no buy-in from the patient or family, they're just not going to take it, right? They're going to go home and just not take it. And then we're all worse off, including, the patient. So it's just, I think it just helps to get that information up front.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Hospitals are actually also focusing a lot on patient safety. So, what inspired you to look into patient safety in the first place, and how do you think hospitals can actually improve this?
Yeah. So, what inspired me? So, I think many times the things that inspire us are things that happen to us. And working, I spend most of my time on the inpatient units, and was at one point early in my career reviewing patient safety reports from the inpatient units. And it just sort of struck me how a lot of times most times these things are avoidable. Patient safety concerns come forward, and I have to say, a lot of times in healthcare, what is reported is what we call near misses. So near misses are patient safety incidents that don't actually reach the patient, but by virtue of various, safety mechanisms being in place, they almost get to the patient, but then something catches it and it doesn't. And we encourage everyone at CHIO to report those near misses so that we can still have a sense of what's going on, even if there is no impact on the patient, because it gives us a sense of our system. And patient safety is not a individual responsibility. It is the responsibility of the organization. And very rarely is it one thing that does cause a patient safety issue. And so with that knowledge, I started really becoming interested in health systems. So how does the system work? And what can we do? Because humans are always going to make mistakes. We are humans. It's what we do. It's going to happen. But how do we create a system that makes it easier for us to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing? And so in some of my early work, I worked a lot with the EPIC, so our electronic health record. I was involved in the launch of that at CHIO, and I got really, really interested in how we can use our electronic health record to help providers do the right thing. From there, I got more interested in the human aspects, and actually had the privilege of working with a human factors specialist, which is a person who has done a master's degree in human factors, which is really the study of how humans interact with their environment. And in healthcare, obviously, like we have just tons of opportunity for improvements of, simple things like what packaging looks like so that we can do the right thing, how instructions are relayed, how education is delivered. And so I became really, really fascinated by all of the ways that we could improve our healthcare system in order to ensure that the right things happen for the patients. And so I've done a number of projects over many, many years with lots of different teams around ways we can improve the system, improve our processes in order to encourage, just in the name of patient safety, to encourage workflows that help people do the right things. Everyone's busy, we have to make these things easy. And so that's been a really rewarding part of my career.
With so many changes happening, how do you personally stay up to date with the latest research, especially in evidence-based medicine?
Yeah, so I love going to conferences. I think that was one of the heartbreaks of COVID, is that we did some virtual conferences, but it's not the same. And so it was very, very exciting to get that back. And there's always lots of ways to learn at a conference. I think part of my strategy has also been my kind of broader work outside of CHIO. So I've been very lucky to be involved with the Canadian Pediatric Society for many years, both as a member and then in the last 5 years as more in a leadership position there. And that has been instrumental in one, getting to know my colleagues across the country, which has been, I mean, it's a whole other conversation, but that has honestly been one of the most rewarding aspects of my career has been that networking and getting to know who my people are across the country. And through the work through the CPS, a lot of things we do is around guideline development, standardizing care. I have some colleagues who are, very heavy, very not heavy, serious researchers. Not that anyone's not serious, but like research is a huge part of their career. And so I both learned from them and more recently had the opportunity to collaborate with them. So I would say it's, nobody has a lot of spare time. And so to integrate the learnings into your day to day and to find ways to continue learning through opportunities that are enjoyable to you, whether it is leadership or research or committee work, is really the key.
Looking ahead, what do you think or hope the future of pediatric medicine will look like?
That's a great question. So I think I do think we still have a way to go in terms of patient and family-centered care practices. I think pediatrics has adopted that as a philosophy, and I think there's really great work being done, not just CHEO, but across pediatrics in North America, because I'm kind of, through my various research, aware of what's happening in the US as well. I think those family and patient-centered care principles are being applied as best as we can, but I do think there still is a way to go. And part of the challenge is, despite what I said earlier about asking questions, we still don't know the best way to engage patients and families in things like guideline development, in things like, hospital system reform. I think we've seen a real increase in patient and family involvement in research, and there's actually some really awesome like courses and ways of meaningfully engaging patients and families in research. But I don't know that we're doing that all the time in all areas. I also a 3-year-old can't tell me what they want. So that would be really nice if I could actually speak to my toddlers and say, what do you think your room should look like? What would make your hospital stay a little bit nicer? But I think really kind of, sticking to the patient and family-centered care agenda and really digging into how to make that a true, meaningful partnership in creating a pediatric healthcare system. Now, I would also like our governments to put more money towards pediatric care. We are the minority of the healthcare budget. And I would argue that the work we do is actually there to help our healthcare system in the future, because healthy kids hopefully means healthy adults. And so I think it would be really nice to see, and I know that at CHEO, our CEO and leadership has been advocating for this for a long time, is the government funding to prioritize pediatric care and give us the resources we need to create healthy kids and healthy community to help kids be healthy, essentially.
So this does bring us to the next part of our podcast, where we do a quick fun and quick rapid fire round.
We're going to throw a couple questions at you, and you could give us the first answer that pops into your head.
Okay.
So, would you rather choose coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If you had a time machine, what era would you visit?
The early 2000s.
That's a good one. What's your go-to stress reliever after a long day at work?
I go to the gym.
Ooh, okay.
Very nice. Okay, favorite childhood TV show?
Today's Special.
Okay.
You're too young to know that show.
I was gonna say I can't relate, but what is your guilty pleasure in food?
A good glass of wine.
Okay.
And ice cream, Tide.
Together?
One after the other.
Perfect.
Okay. So that was fun. And before we wrap it up, I'd love to know what's one thing that keeps you motivated and passionate about your work every day.
My patients. I know it sounds cliche, but truly, it is hard to compare to the feeling of sending a child home. right? I think discharging a patient is such a such a great feeling. They kids, that's the thing about kids. They actually get sick really fast, but they get better really fast. And so that's my joy of pediatrics, is just being able to every day send a kid home with their caregivers and their families. Yeah, that's definitely the best part of my job and what keeps me going.
Honestly, I don't find that to be cliche at all. I think that's a beautiful perspective and I find it really inspiring. So, lastly, for all the future doctors, researchers, and healthcare professionals listening today, what's one message that you would like to share with them?
So first of all, thank you for considering medicine as your future career. It is a difficult journey for sure, but it is one of the most rewarding jobs one can have. And we do need we need, excited, enthusiastic, and passionate doctors to take care of me. I'm just kidding. But not, right? And I think choosing medicine is it can be it's a journey. It's a journey, but thank you for choosing to give of yourself to take care of others. And my second would be, don't forget to have some fun along the way. Life doesn't happen later. Life is happening right now. And so in realizing that and truly trying to be in the moment and balancing as much as you can and enjoying what you can as you go through this journey, I think is really, really important, because being a doctor takes a long time. And for many of us, we don't finish that journey until we're in our 30s. And so trying to still live life along the way is really, really important, and something that I would say is not easy to achieve, but worth trying.
Thank you so much, Dr. Buba, for joining us today and for sharing your incredible insights.
It
You're
has
very
been
welcome.
a real pleasure to have you as our very first guest on Lab to Life. And thank you to everyone listening. And we hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did.
Stay tuned for more exciting episodes coming your way soon.
Thanks so much.